y'all. Okay. Let's see, today is Friday, September 29th. I just ran a mile and a half on new trails. I'll call them Nick's trails because I don't really know what they're called. It's over here behind the YMCA in Burlington, and the guy at Nick's Cycling told me about them. He said that the running trail is on the higher ground and the mountain biking trails are all over the place. There's like 4.7 miles of biking and just over a mile of running. So I started off at where I think he told me to go. I got totally lost. I think I ended up on part of the biking trail and got nervous because I really didn't want to do all the steeps on single track. So I made my own path and kept finding parts of the trail and eventually ended up back where I started. So figured I would take y'all for a walk with me as I continue through the trails on a different section, if I don't get too lost. But let's get real. I want to talk about my Quad Cities Marathon. First, I want to say how incredibly proud of Joshua I am. He ran his first half marathon during the Quad Cities, and because Don is in taper for Hennepin 150 mile, he did not run the marathon this year, and decided to hold on, I got something in my eye. I think I got a spider web on my eyelashes. But he decided to pace Joshua for as long as he could during the half, and then he would go run the rest on his own so he can get some speed in there, because Joshua it was his first half, so he was taking it slow. And sorry, it's a little technical over here. I think Don ran the first 6 miles with him, and then he caught up with me because apparently I got around him and didn't even know it. And then he ran with me for, I don't know, maybe 3/4 of a mile before we got to the point where the half marathoners go one way and the fullers go the other way. And it was so cute because when we were at the crossing point there, the girl who was directing running traffic got so excited. She's like, "Oh, I wish I would have got a picture of the two of you. That was so adorable," because he kissed me before he took off. And all the people around her were like, "Oh." I was embarrassed, but you know, I'm not gonna lie, it was cute. Hey, this is a tricky spot here. It was pretty back here. I don't know if you can see some cliffs down there. I don't know. But anyway, okay, so I will say that for the first time all week, I'm in much better spirits. So, I'm going to start off by saying I don't want to fall. So bear with me here because there's like a slide going down and down and down and down. And a nice tree over there, if I can get to it, I can hang on. So I'm wearing my trail shoes, but I don't always have faith in my own footing, so bear with me. Whew. I'd say I'm definitely on the mountain bike trail here, not the runner's trail. They're not very well marked. The guy told me that there were green arrows for the running trail and red arrows for the biking trail. And I only saw the one green arrow going left, and it had 2 red arrows for the biking, and after that, that's all I saw. I never saw another green arrow. So, this is a little nerve-wracking here. Okay. I'd like to be able to look in the camera the whole time I'm recording, but I'll probably fall if I do that, so you get to see my fat face from the profile for the most part. Alright, let me get up here. Yay, more technical stuff. Okay, so everyone knows, if you've been following me, I know I don't really have any followers on YouTube here, but through Facebook, because this also goes to Facebook. This year was my second full marathon after running Quad Cities for the first time last year, my first marathon. 5 weeks later, I ran my first 50K at the Chicago Lakefront 50-50, which includes a 50-mile race, but I did not do that. I don't think I ever will do a 50-miler, but never say never, because I also never said I would never run a marathon. Anyway, so I've been training since the end of May to run my second full marathon, and it got really hot mid-June to early August, and I struggled to get my long runs in. I attempted a 14-miler in July that I ended up doing in splits, so I did like the first 7 miles, I think it was. And then I went out an hour later and did 4 or 3. Did 3, because it was a total of 10 that day. It was so hot. I was going to finish up and do the remaining 4 in the evening of that day, but I ended up getting a heat stroke. And I went and laid down. Oh boy. Yeah, I don't think I'll be going this way. I'm probably going to turn around. Or I might be able to handle it. There's trees to hold on to. It's a little steep. There's a bridge. Maybe I'll just stop right here and chat for a bit instead of trying to make my way down while holding the phone up. So, okay. Where was I? Mr. Tree, where was I? Oh, okay, my 14-miler. So, I had heat stroke, and I was just getting way too hot. Went back inside, turned on the air in my bedroom, laid down. Don had already gone to work by then, and what'd I do? Oh, I was freezing, so I bundled up under the covers with the air on full blast, and I laid there for like half an hour, and I was just sweating profusely. It was disgusting how much I was still sweating, and yet I couldn't get warm. So I knew then I was having a heat stroke, or heat exhaustion, something like that. It was bad. Whatever it was bad. And I did not handle the heat that day, so in a short run I can handle it fine-ish. In long runs, mentally I'm game. I'm ready to do it, but physically I fall apart, and I try to fight it, and I ended up just like not gonna happen. In fact, I ended up staying in bed the rest of the night from like 5 o'clock that evening, and I slept the whole thing off. I did have like tailwind and stuff like that to replenish my electrolytes, but I didn't get up the rest of that night. So anywho, after that I had a 16-miler to do. What did I do? I think it was end of July, and this was when I was still trying to run it straight through. I was hoping that I would be able to run the first half marathon of the race without walking or stopping, and then do Galloway intervals for the second half. So when I ran my 16, I was still attempting that process, and again, I failed miserably. By the time I got to mile 12, it was such an exhausted mile that I ran super slow. I think I ran the entire mile during mile 12, but I think my pace for that mile was in the 15-minute range, so that was a slow one. And then once I hit mile 13, through the end, I was walking. So I was very disappointed in myself, but I knew then, if I'm going to make it through this full for the second time, but technically the third, since I did run a 50K as well, which is just over 5 miles longer than the full marathon. If I was going to do this, I was going to have to do it using my tried and true Galloway method. And last year I ran it with intervals of 2:1, so I did 2 minutes of running to 1 minute of walking, and I kept that sequence going throughout until I couldn't do it anymore. And then it was just run when you can, walk when you must. Alrighty, so my hubby Don suggested just run the 16 again. Don't feel defeated, just do your new method, your Galloway, and see if you can handle it that time. So I waited a week and I ran my 16er, and sure enough, I did fine. This year I chose to do 3:1, so I did 3 minutes of running to 1 minute of walking, which is an improvement over last year. It gives me a faster mile. Last year my overall was in the 14-minute range for doing that, and by doing a 3:1 ratio, it kept me in the 13-minute range. So my running times were anywhere from 10 to 12 minutes. And then I would have a minute of walking to break it up. So that's why the overall mile would always be in the 13-minute range. So I was totally fine with that. You know, I'm a slow runner. I don't care about that. I used to care. I don't care anymore. I've had an issue with my left foot for several years now. And I know that keeps me from being able to run faster, because I can run faster, and I do on shorter distances. Like, I got second place in a 5K this year for my my age group. But if I'm going to go a distance, I have to keep a slow pace. So I will not push myself to run faster, and I just don't care, as long as I can finish. I've already seen 2 deer out here. I'm wondering if that's what I'm hearing now. But a lot of acorns and black walnuts falling around me too. It's fall. Okay. So I had a successful 16er. Then I went to Vegas and I got to see Austin in where he's stationed out there at Nellis. Stayed with him for a few days, and then he and I both flew up to Montana, where we moved my oldest son, Donnie. He finished up his 6-year contract with the Air Force, and he was stationed at Malmstrom. So we helped him pack up and took turns driving his car back home to Iowa. And that was such an incredibly fun adventure. And I have yet to post all my pictures from either one of those 2 trips. It was just all in one trip, but you know, 2 big segments. It was my first time to Vegas and my first time to Montana, and it was just so cool. I got to see a lot of things that I've always wanted to see, like Mount Rushmore and stuff. Okay, so got back from there, and a few days after we got back, I ran my 18. I did great. I stuck with my intervals, and I again stayed in the 13-minute range for my overall pace. The funny thing is, from early August, basically the day after I left for Vegas, up until the week before the Quad Cities Marathon, it was like fall. We had beautiful weather, very little rain, so it's been very dry. But the temperatures were not getting any higher than the 70s. A lot of days were just in the 60s. We had some 50s for early morning running, which was so incredibly amazing for August and September. My arm's getting sore. So by the time I had to run my 20, I think the high for that day was like 68 degrees. I ran it in the morning, so I did, again, I think I had like a 13:37 overall pace for my 20, which is fabtastic. Fabtastic, new word. And I was just totally stoked that I was going to be able to have a fabulous second marathon. I was hoping I could finish my marathon time with like an hour less than I did last year, because last year I was the second to last runner to come in. I had a 7-hour 19-minute plus finish time. I don't remember what the seconds were. It's written on my bib, but I'm not gonna look it up. I'm not even home, so who cares? Because I finished in 4:37 for my 20, I'm like, I know I'm going to be super tired by the time I get to mile 20. When you're on the course, that's when you get off the Arsenal Island Bridge and you're going left to do a 10K. So you go 5K up the beautiful trail along the river, and then a 5K back to the finish line. So I knew by the time I got there, I would be worn out. So it wasn't very likely I would be able to hold a 13+ minute pace for the last 10K of the race, but as long as I got to that point in the 13s, I was going to do great, and I was going to, I think maybe at worst, maybe a 6.5 hour finish. So that would have been, you know, math. So I'm not going to do that, but definitely would have been faster than my finish time last year. And I was so hopeful for that. I thought for sure I'd be able to pull it off. You know, the weather had been great for, what, 7 weeks? And I knew I was going to ace it. For me, ace it, you know. And not quite a week before, the forecast started to change. We got into the 80s again, and by the time we could see what the forecast would be for Moline on race day, as we got closer to the race, the temperature started getting higher and higher and higher. 3 days out, they were calling for a high of 91, and I think it got up to 93 actually on race day, but by then I was just devastated. I'm like, I've proven I don't handle the heat very well. You know, hello, heat stroke. And I know how stubborn I am. I would force myself to work through it. So I took all precautionary measures. Joe Marino, the race director, said that he was going to have ice all over the course. At first it was just going to be one station on around mile 20. My arm is really getting tired. Let's prop it up with this tree here. There we go. Okay, so he said that he was going to have ice around mile 20, and then he did Facebook Live on Thursday night, I think, before the race, saying that it looked like they might have a couple other ice spots and a popsicle station. So I had hope that maybe I'd be okay, because see these cooling sleeves I'm wearing? They're just sleeves. I'm not wearing another layer. See, they end right there. They're dry wicking, so they take the sweat right off my arm, and it dries off on the outside. So, because I always sweat in the crook of my elbow, and it runs down to my wrist, and that is the most annoying thing. I don't like that, so I found these, and then when the wind blows through them, it feels like I got air conditioners on my arms. I love it. Okay, so I thought, okay, I've got my everything I can do to try and run through this hot race. I had my my Nathan hydration pack that holds 1.5 liters of water. It was filled mainly with ice and then topped off with water. I had a Solomon soft flask to hold, in my pack, to hold Tailwind. So I had 3 packets of Tailwind with me, and I figured when I needed it, I would just pour it into the soft flask and then fill up water at the aid stations. I had salt sticks. I had both chewable and the swallow pill. I had enough goo for every 3 miles plus 2 extra just in case. That would be in the nutrition to replenish all my other resources, amino acids, carbohydrates, sodium, magnesium, all that good stuff. What else did I have with me? I had some Advil just in case. I had 3 extra sweat towels because, you know, I can't run without a sweat towel. And I don't know. Oh, my sleeves. That's what I was starting to say. So I had an older pair of cooling sleeves that I used to. I sewed them together, so made one long sock. I sewed one end of it up and kept the other end open to pour ice in. So I figured along the course, I would just put ice in it and keep that around my neck to help keep me cool. So, okay, cut short to the race. I did what I could to be proactive, and at that point, I mean, even Joe was telling everyone, don't make this a PR race, just do it as a fun run, because it's just way too hot out there to try and push and to try to beat any previous times. So I, at that point, knew it wasn't going to happen. I wasn't going to beat last year's times. I'd hoped that maybe I would at least come in at around the same time. So Don caught up to me, and by now I was in mile 8. Hold on. So sorry. And it was about 8.8 miles in that he cut off to the half marathon route. By the time he caught up to me, though, I don't know if it helped or hurt, but I was wearing braided pigtails that day, and he looked so cute too. And he came up behind me and yanked one of them, and I knew it was Don or Joshua, but more than likely Don. So it didn't scare me, and I saw him on the corner of my eye, and I just stopped running. I'm like, okay, yay, now I've got an excuse to walk, because I'm not going to run and talk to him at the same time. So I started walking, and that was where I fell apart. Last year, I didn't start walking past my method until I was in mile 9, and it was a mile sooner this time. So I knew then that the heat was getting to me, and when we finished the first 10K of the race, I'm like, can this just be the end of it right here? I was just not having it. And so anyway, half marathon split, he went his way. I started seriously struggling at that point. I got up on Centennial Bridge. I ran a little bit when I got up there, but mainly I walked, and then through the city of Rock Island, I think I walked the whole thing there. And there was, by the time I got onto Arsenal Island and I crossed over the half marathon mat, I ran across the half marathon mat, and that was actually the last time I ran. The rest of the race I was walking. I could not find the energy. I couldn't find the stamina. My feet were absolutely killing me, and I don't even know why. I had no blisters. I was shocked to see there's no blisters. They were getting swollen, and I'm sure the heat had a lot to do with that. And my back was really hurting me, which I haven't felt since last summer during training. So it was just like, why? I couldn't believe what I was going through, and it sucked so bad. So when I got to a point where returning to go down Rodman Avenue on Arsenal Island. About 6 of the race official cyclists came up and told whoever was directing running traffic there, hey, we got about 15 runners left on the course after her, so I was 16th from the end. And that made me feel really good, but at the same time, I saw the people ahead of me and who was behind me, and not one of us were running. We were all walking, and I didn't see any of them run the rest of the time I was out there either. So, I don't know, I guess maybe about halfway through the island, I see Don running towards me, and I wanted to burst into tears. I was so happy to see him, but because I was so drastically hitting the wall, if you want to call it that, it might not have even been that. It might have just been suffering the heat. But he said I looked like I was disappointed to see him, and I really was not. I was very happy to see him. I was just disappointed in how the day was going for me. And I honestly didn't know if I'd be able to continue, but I know how I am, and I was going to try no matter what. So, my feet were killing me. I ended up stopping to use the bathroom at one point, and I undid some of my hickey shoelaces to make room for my swelling feet, and I did too much, so then I had to stop and redo some of the laces up there to make them a little bit more snug on me. And I kept telling Don, I don't know if I can make this. I don't know if I'm going to be able to finish this. I don't know what to do. I made a post on Facebook saying I think I had my first DNF, but at that point I wasn't genuinely trying to cut the race short. I just had a feeling it might turn out that way. And Don kept telling the kids, they were calling to see how I was doing, Joshua and Sierra, and he's like, yeah, she's not going to finish. And out loud, I was saying, I can't. And in my head, I'm like, you know you have to try. You're going to be stubborn, and you're at least just push yourself until you cannot do anymore. So even though I was telling everybody, when I get to the bridge, I'm gonna be done. In my head, I'm like, you're just gonna go left, and you're gonna keep going up that trail, and you're gonna hit that last 6.2 miles. So by the time I actually got to the bridge, getting off the island, race officials on bikes came up to me and said, Joe is taking everybody off the course who's still remaining. So you and whoever's left from this point, he doesn't want you finishing on the 10K route. He wants you to just go ahead and redirect yourself to the finish line. So he's like, they're like, the heat's just too much. It's not worth it. For your own safety, we're going to have you guys just come off over here and go right. I was relieved and disappointed at the same time. I'm like, you know, I always said I would never DNF unless it was a forced DNF. If I didn't make cutoff times or if race directors pulled me off, that'd be the only way I would ever not finish a race. And I was grateful that he was actually doing that. Because if I did decide to quit on my own, I would have been extremely disappointed in myself for giving up. And it's really hard to grasp that because, you know, the conditions were not in our favor. They were absolutely terrible. But I am such a stubborn person. I didn't want that on my conscience. I didn't want to think I couldn't do it. And I failed. And it was so, so hard to deal with. But when they said that Joe was pulling me, I was like, alright, I've got a DNF. And it's not on my own accord. It's because they're making me. So, he met me at the finish line. I ran through the corral. So between half marathon point and there, I didn't run until I was going through the corral. And as I was running through the corral, Joe ran up to me, had a beer in his hand, and he was spilling all over the place, spilled on my shoe. I didn't care. And he's got his arm around me, and he is apologizing, telling me how sorry he is. This is the first time in 20 years of running this race that he's actually had to pull people off the course. And he felt really bad to do that, but he's like, this is for your own safety. I cannot handle knowing that someone might fall apart out there. And he's like, I know how you are. You are so strong that I know you would push yourself to go out there and do it, and I didn't want anything bad to happen to you. So he told me he had to do it. So I was grateful and disappointed at the same time. Who wouldn't be? But you know. So he's like, I personally want to give you your medal, your finisher's medal. He's like, you did it. You earned it. You put in the hard work. You put in all the training. You ran your ass off today. Pardon my language. I'm sorry. I'm just quoting. And so he gave me a big hug and kissed me on the cheek and put the medal around my head, my neck, and congratulated me for at least getting, you know, over 20 miles of the race done. And I did not finish my second marathon, but I did finish the race. And as the second day, you know, Monday, the day after the race, I think I went through a little depression about it. I was really disappointed in how it turned out. But still extremely grateful to Joe for looking after me and the other runners out there and pulling us off. They only had 300 some odd people to finish the full out of 500 that started, 500 plus that started. I heard from other people that they were talking about it on the news, how they had a record number of people drop from the race this year, including those who Joe felt just he needed to save. And I thought last year was bad, but no, it was worse this year. Humidity wasn't that bad, so it was just the heat itself that just got to be too much. So my feet were killing me. My back was hurting me. Those are the only things. I know I didn't drink enough Tailwind. I took my goose on key with that. I did not drink enough water. I don't know why. Last year I was just going through